And we are live. It is Jay Wamstead and Chris Stewart. Jay and Chris for what looks to be like the first episode of Across the Lines. We had to rebrand a little bit these shows that we've been doing in the past. Didn't like the name White Noise after a while. Kind of wore off. Was not the right thing. But since I'm doing a series of interesting shows and broadcasts underneath the banner Unpublic, which basically just means the things that we say in private. I thought maybe we could do these across the lines shows together because we are always looking to talk across lines of difference, gather understanding from each other. Typically, we had framed that really crudely in terms of black and white, the black guy and the white guy, or the white guy and the black guy. But we have we have way more lines of difference than that, I think, to talk across, even when it's not just ours, Jay. There's so many lines of difference we could talk across, even when it's not just ours, if we were seriously seeking solutions.
Yeah, I mean, we ended up talking so much. I feel like the voice of the teacher sometimes on here. I think that's probably the biggest line that you and I have to bridge across when we talk. I mean, I am white, you are black, and I think that that's always going to matter. I think that matters a lot today because we had a whole bunch of stuff we wanted to talk about schools and public schools, and that all kind of got thrown out the window, I think, a couple hours ago. Maybe we'll get to schools here at the end, but I think we're not going to lead with schools tonight, are we, Chris?
No, so let me just kind of put up a screenshot to help frame the show and anchor us in what we're talking about tonight, because history is being made right now. Trump's presidency ends in American carnage. This is the headline at CNN. Now, CNN is not known for having subtle headlines, so I'm not gonna say any more than that. Just to say, though, that in this case, it's not a terribly inaccurate headline. But look at all the headlines. Trump's presidency ends in American carnage. First Lady's chief of staff and former White House press secretary resign over violent protest. Twitter, the private company, locks Trump's account for 12 hours, signals he could be banned.
Finally.
I was about to say, I think that's really funny that it takes mayhem at the Capitol, people doing violent acts, for them finally to deplatform the leader of the free world who has been using their platform for 3 years and plus, maybe even more than that, to stir up global controversy and dangerously so.
Yeah, I mean,
look at all these other headlines here; they're all kind of bad.
I think Trump's free advertising on Twitter goes back to at least birtherism, back in the mid-Obama years, whenever that was, when Trump took it over. So Twitter owes us some payback for all that free advertising they've given him over the years. And it seems to me a 12-hour suspension doesn't quite do it, but we'll see.
No, I heard that, I think that one of the headlines here is that Facebook has also taken down his video for being inaccurate.
After it was viewed 2 million times, but yeah.
Who are we fooling? Now everybody wants to get all kind of, I don't know what you would call it, administrative all of a sudden.
It's funny because if you go to Donald's, I feel like I can call him Donald now, now that he's almost a private citizen again. I really like how Sharif on 8 Black Hens just calls him 45. I've tried to get in the habit of doing that. Just not even to give the name oxygen. So if you go to 45's Twitter feed right now, they've deleted so many tweets that it's just the fake, like the tweets where he says, "Oh, don't protest. We're the party of law and order." Like it looks like a sensible Twitter feed.
Claire McCaskills, former Congresswoman,
from your neck of the woods, Missouri. Yeah.
She's Missouri. Yeah, she's not my neck of the woods, homie. I'm way up in Minnesota.
Whoa. See, Chris, when you're from Atlanta, everything north of Tennessee is your neck of the woods.
Okay. Then yes, she is from my neck of the woods.
If you're not in the SEC, I don't know.
She said the most obvious thing on MSNBC today. She said, okay, so imagine people taking over the Capitol, breaking windows, endangering the life of the vice president, the sitting vice president, and other sitting members of Congress. screaming down police officers and chasing them down the hallway. And then she said, "Now imagine that they were black."
Yep.
And I thought, okay, see,
Well,
that's
they don't make it in the doors, right? They get shot before they make it inside. I mean, that's the sad fact of how that would go down. You know that.
I mean, the whole thing for me looks to be, I should say this. I should say this in a way that isn't terrible, but this is the way I'm going to say it because it is kind of terrible. I'm not exactly, well, no one is surprised necessarily, I think, in my network about this. Like, oh, this could happen. That's so that we're not surprised. But I'm not terribly saddened either by the fact that what I am seeing on display is the greatest example of white privilege in the history of white privilege, right?
Yeah.
You spend all your time finger wagging at BLM and Antifa and black people and trying to tone police us. And, I may have been for your cause, but, all the rioting and the looting stopped me from caring about the fact that you were getting killed by police officers or at least beaten down on a regular basis by police officers. But you lose an election and it's the sorest of all sore losers. It's the most entitled of entitlement. It's the most like wearing a mask is like the worst civil rights violation you've ever had in your entire life. You've been following Daddy Warbucks for the last, 3.5 years, a complete man-child hunk of white privilege, like the biggest blob of white privilege I've ever seen in one place. Guy who spent 4 years saying that President Obama was lazy and golfed too much. Is a guy who gains weight in the White House from golfing, enriching his entire family, and all the rules suddenly don't apply anymore. He doesn't have to work hard. Obama had to work hard. He doesn't have to prove he's legitimate. Obama had to spend his entire time proving he was legitimate. He doesn't have to, he doesn't have to renounce anything,
Well, and he's going to walk out of the White House with a third of America walking with him. I mean, metaphorically, it's just so. I've spent the last 6 hours just Googling and shaking my head and freaking out and talking to my wife and telling I have young children at home, so we're telling them some things, but my son's how far away is Washington D.C.? He's worried the riot's going to come here. He's 8. I have to figure out how to talk to him about it. And that's been a whole landmine of the Trump presidency, is trying to talk to my children about him. But I don't know. I just find it so ironic. Ironic's not really the word, but so fitting that this kind of started last night, right? When Warnock won that Senate seat, because I just thought we were going to be talking about that tonight, about what that says about the state of American politics and where we are going forward, and that Trump lost both those seats in Georgia, in the Deep South, and I know we have more black people per capita in this state than I think any other state, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but we're a very, very Republican state historically, and up to the election. I mean, there's a lot of white people in the state, and most of them voted for Trump, and a lot of black people turned out yesterday, and a lot of white people didn't vote for Trump, and resoundingly handed Warnock that seat, right? I mean, I think at last look he won by 2 points, and Ossoff's going to end up winning by a larger margin than Biden won by, and just the thought that Trump and his failed policies, if you could even say that he has policies, that his failed policies kind of came to a head last night with him losing these Senate seats, and they were his to lose. Chris, don't let the liberal left convince you that Georgia was a shoo-in, because it was not. The Republicans should have walked away with those runoff seats, and Trump lost them. And there's one frame where you could almost look at it and go, well, that's it. That's the last gasp of Trumpism. That's the last gasp of this white nationalist agenda. But then today happens, and that's not the last gasp. There is no last gasp, right? It's just one more wave.
So Michelle Johnson asked the question, how are you going to handle student questions and comments tomorrow about this?
I don't know.
If you have any questions.
So I teach 8th grade, so I will definitely be, and I teach math. So, but it's the first day of school for us. So it's gonna be an interesting day. I can bring it up. I teach eighth grade. I teach uh, mostly black and brown children, and so demographically, I probably don't have a lot of Trump supporters in my room. So I'm kind of free to bring it up how I want to. I'm not sure how. I'm not sure yet. I really don't know. I need. That's kind of what we're. I'm working through some stuff with you right now. Talk to my children some more, and I have a sixth grade daughter, so I can see how it is that she needs to frame this. It needs to be brought up, though. I mean, and I think if you teach above elementary school, you got to be like not. I mean, you got to be ready for it as a teacher, and then you also probably need to bring it up yourself. I mean, that's just where I stand. But I know intelligent people disagree.
You think teachers should, jump in on it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, having only taught high school and eighth grade in my life, like, I just can't imagine in any group of kids I've ever taught in my life not walking into the room, like, aware of what's going on, aware of what happened. They saw that viral photo of the Confederate flag being flown in the side of the Capitol. Like they're talking about it. Like,
I did not. You had mentioned that too in the pre-show. I didn't see a picture of that. That's got to be the craziest thing, though. No, I got to look for it.
I don't even want to Google it, but yeah, it's sickening. I mean,
they were out there flying multiple flags, like the Trump flag, the Don't Tread flag. There was some of them that had the police flag, but apparently they're not so hot on the police anymore. So
can I send you this? This is like I'm just gonna send this to you, I think, so you can share it. We don't need to look at all these photos, but this is the.
Now I'll pull it up in a second.
Okay.
I want to point this out. This is something I wrote on December 21st of last year. And this was after the Proud Boys did the demonstration in Washington, D.C. And they were tearing down banners. They tore down the Black Lives Matter banner from a historically black church and all of that. So that was a precursor to everything we're seeing today. We already saw some of this today.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make sense of it, not just for myself, but also for my kids and just in general. Like, what does an educated person have to say about this right now? And I really didn't come up with an awful lot. One was just my admonishment that ignorance will be the death of us. Like, this is why we do education. This is why we care about education. Like, when we talk flowery or whatever you want to call it about just the romance of how like an educated citizenry is necessary, like Jefferson's words and stuff like that. I think we say it kind of like rhetoric, but we don't really honestly get what an ignorant citizenry can do to kill us.
If I can interrupt real quick and then you go back, like we talk about it in our you never did ed classes in college, but like, you come up with these philosophy of education. Everyone's got a philosophy of education, and you work on it and you write it and you tweak it. We're all picturing people in the public square, like, and if you're white, you're picturing like ancient Greece and everyone's wearing a toga and they're just like sitting there like speaking on the Acropolis, and that's what we picture about education, right? But the obverse is what you're talking about right here. Like, but when we don't educate, like, we get ignorance. So back to
an idiocy. So instead of a democracy, when you have an idiocy, like an idiot citizenry, like
idiocracy.
Idiocracy. That's what I'm looking for. So, it's funny because right now we'll do this in another show, but I am writing my own philosophy of education because I'm in a college program right now that's requiring me as one of the projects to do that. So, it'd be fun to come back to that and kind of compare notes on it. But in this, I was grasping for straws. When I wrote this in December 21st, on December 21st, I was just like, the obvious thing to do is the gut check on, oh my God, I'm so sick of the right wing nutcases that are doing all this stuff or whatnot. But that doesn't that gets you a certain distance, but it doesn't get you all the way. So at the end, closer to the end, I had to basically kind of like grasp for straws. And what I came up with was there is no easy answer out of this. We do have a large portion of people who are uneducated in the United States that could kill our nation. It's a nation killer, I called it. But education could be one part of the solution. Civics could be one part of the solution, helping people understand how things work and where they come from, and just a higher level of proficiency in government might help in some sort of way. And this isn't original at all. People are already calling for an increase in civics education.
Yeah.
Like more, the Center for American Progress put something out talking about how many people have flunked the most basic of basic things about their own country, like knowing the most basic of facts about how government works, the branches of government, where the power lies and how things are done. Like the number of Americans who woke up this morning who thought perhaps that Mike Pence could just,
yeah, sure. That's what's so crazy is that I really think that those people on the steps of the Capitol, you're gone, so I can never tell.
Nope, I'm here.
Okay, those people on the steps of the Capitol, I really think they thought that there was a chance, not a chance, but that it was just as likely as not that Mike Pence could go in there, refuse to sign, and Trump would still be president. Like they're just like the disinformation and ignorance that they've been ingesting, breathing for the past 4 years, and especially the past 2 months, is just astonishing. And we do owe that to our kids. And I've thought about Michelle's question a little bit, just in the back of my mind, is like, I'm not saying that every 8th grade math teacher needs to go in and like tweak their lesson plan to talk about the riot in Washington, but I am saying that like when you're dealing with teenagers and they're thinking about something, you're remiss as an educator if you don't bring it up, right? I almost say casually, just be like, wow, did y'all see the news yesterday? I mean, like I'm not calling on every 8th grade teacher in America to rewrite their lesson plan. I am calling on them to like try to engage with their students about a crazy event in American history. It'll be almost like the Challenger exploding back in the 80s when we were kids, and like everyone just acting like it didn't happen. I mean, and that, I don't know.
I mean, if you don't say anything about it, it gives the impression that you're not seeing what they're seeing. And kids, they suffer trauma privately, oftentimes. This thing that you sent me, man, this is Nutso City.
Yeah.
What the hell is this? This is the pictures from today. Wow. So pro-Trump rioters breach U.S. Capitol history. So, okay, help me out here, man. So let's just say that this guy right here with this hat is all of a sudden a black dude with dreads, and this is a BLM flag, right?
Sure.
In the Capitol. We would be having so many different conversations right now than we're having. That like, okay, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Guys with guns drawn. Look at this guy right here. This you can't see what I'm saying, but look, I'm going to put a cursor over this guy right here, right here. And they've got their guns drawn. They're like holding down the fort, and these guys are like like whatever, like crazy people at the gate. All of a sudden, a black man. This is a different picture. This picture tells a different story.
That's
Antifa or black man hanging from the rafters. All my 1776 people who might want to watch this and who love to give me a civics lesson all the time about how beautiful the traditions are and how terrible people we are forever even questioning the majesty of the great accomplishments of American government or whatnot. So these guys are crapping all over your Capitol, and I don't hear any of my conservative, right of center, right wing people saying much of anything.
Well, they've already,
they're kind of quiet just a little bit.
I've already heard it through my, I'm sure you've heard it. You might have heard it too, but like through my, I have extensive channels with white people.
I don't.
Okay. So
I'm going to live vicariously through you.
My white people, the people I'm near and dear to, tend to be Democrat leaning or at least anti-Trump. But we're all related to people that aren't. So anyway, I've already heard from a friend, from a relative of hers, a close relative of hers, that this is Antifa's fault, and that this is not like it was a peaceful protest. Antifa like incited the riot, and the Trump people.
Oh yeah. So we had. I didn't get deep on that talking point, but apparently someone in my network tweeted and had to take it down. A fairly well, I don't know what you call the person. The person is well known and esteemed, in some way, shape, or form. But excuse me, retweeted a picture that was supposed to be of some Antifa people there, and then had to take it down because it was debunked and
Yeah, they weren't there,
blah.
bro.
They weren't. Yeah, they weren't there. Like Antifa is this is why I keep calling this like the biggest example of privilege, because it's almost like you don't ever really have to take accountability for anything. The worst thing you could possibly do, like you've got grenades going off and explosives, and a person got killed at the Capitol today, and blah blah, and it will still be someone else's fault.
Yeah.
It's
And
still
that's
going
going
to
to
be
be,
someone else's fault.
that is, I'm sure it's on Fox right now, but it'll be the party line tomorrow on Fox and Friends that Trump, they'll probably have Trump on the phone, like, and he'll be talking about how Antifa ruined the peaceful protest. I mean, like, I'm sure that guy's Antifa in their minds. That photo is bonkers. Go back. That's Nancy Pelosi's
This
desk.
one.
That man is
Yeah.
at Nancy Pelosi's desk, just kicking it. Like,
And he wrote her a note, didn't he? Like, "We'll never back down" or something like that. He wrote it on this folder right here on the desk here.
okay.
They showed it on MSNBC. He wrote her a note, "We'll be back," kind of, or it was kind of like, "We'll never back down." That's true. Oh, again, okay. So, black man, heavily armed black man, with a BLM T-shirt, sitting at, I don't know, let's call it Loeffler's desk or someone who, anybody's desk or something.
He's got better shoes than that guy probably, but
Yeah, we would be having all kinds of conversations about black parenting and about the broken black family and how the culture is violent. The black culture is violent, and
But Chris,
hip hop music and all that,
but
right?
your thought experiment is absolutely true, but like, that the black protesters never would have made it in the building because there'd have been better security around the building to start with. Like, where was the security around the building that these men made it in? If the protesters had been black, there would have been better security from the jump, and they would have just shot from the second that glass broke. When somebody broke a window at the Capitol, they'd have been shot. Like, they wouldn't be running around like trying to protect lives.
True.
I mean, you know how that goes. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm really a little bit kind of unnerved and not really getting how the capital of the free world had such lax enforcement today. Like,
it's crazy.
yeah, well, I mean, when you have to take Congress people out, like, on their knees and stuff from the Capitol, what does that tell the whole world?
I mean,
What does that tell
500,
the world?
539 of the most important people in the world, or 536, whatever, 500 something of the most important people in the world were sitting in the same building today, and they were breached by a bunch of guys with flags. And I mean, these are just, this is, where was the police? Where was the National Guard? Where was the Army? Like, they knew this was, I mean, how could they not think this was going to happen? That's my question. Like, look at this guy. This guy makes me sick.
This guy right here actually chased a police officer down the hall. Yeah, down the hallway, and didn't stop like this until backup and reinforcements came. But he followed him all the way upstairs, and the cop kept trying to have him go back, and he was doing exactly what he's doing in this picture, kind of like a, come at me, bro, type of thing. If Americans and white America does not have a serious conversation about the dual nature of our country, the two-tiered system of justice and punishment and crime, and the two-tiered system of privilege, after this, they never will. And this is an entire group of people who had our, emperor baby hands, our, our chief, privilege maker in the United States, who has attacked everybody, but always says, "I've been treated very unfairly. It's very unfair how they've treated me." He says it all the time. He's the victim. He's always the victim, even as he's the victimizer. He is the model of white people 2.0. And these are his minions. And they are entitled but aggrieved. They are privileged but feel oppressed. They have everything that they need, but they feel like everything's being taken from them. It's just a different breed. It's a different strain. So if white people 1.0 were like COVID, this is like your whatever vaccine you were using before, whatever those anti-racist books or whatever you were putting out before for the regular white people. it's not going to work for this this strain of white
We
people.
need the
So
second vaccine.
you need the second vaccine.
It feels to me, and I'm just like in a Georgia metaphor kind of mood, and my brain's always like trying to write something at the same time. But so it was like 100 years ago, 105 years ago or so, that they thought the Ku Klux Klan, which they thought was over, it had boiled up in the 1800s, and they'd squashed it. And it was 1915, a little bit outside of Atlanta, Georgia, at a wonderful Confederate monument called Stone Mountain. The Ku Klux Klan came roaring back to life, and it was just what you said. It was Ku Klux. It was the Klan 2.0. It wasn't your grandfather's Klan. This was your daddy's Klan, where all the where every cop was in the Klan, and the gentlemen's clubs, and blah blah blah. And it just the Klan went from something that everybody thought was gone, and this is the point of the metaphor, and it all of a sudden was back, and it was everywhere. Within months, years, and that feels like this. That's what this feels like to me today. Like just the thought that like last night I was just so optimistic, right? It was like, okay, we finally repudiated Trump. Like this is a decisive Democratic victory. Like America has said, we don't want you, mister. Like we don't want your politics. We don't want your rhetoric. Like we are rejecting you. You should have won these seats and you lost them because America rejects you. And instead of that peaceful Atlanta story, we get this boil over today, which is not Georgia's fault by any stretch, but I'm just trying to stretch to make the Ku Klux Klan metaphor. But it
doesn't need to be a metaphor, Jay.
it's just what you said. It's like if you've been ignoring white nationalism, what I've also heard referred to as just like Christian nationalism, white Christian nationalism. If you've been ignoring white Christian nationalism for the past 12 years or so, 13 years since Obama burst on the scene, like you can't ignore it anymore. This is our Stone Mountain moment. They put a cross in the ground and they burned it so everybody in Atlanta could see it from 30 miles away. And that's what this is right here. This is like the white Christian nationalists. Like this is not the swan song. This is not a last gasp. This is a gauntlet thrown, right? That like we now have to something. I don't know.
What do you think is the something?
I don't know what the thing. But you're right. It's not a book. It's not like it. It's not a book. We're past books.
You don't think we can just give people a copy of Kendi and?
I don't think these guys read Kendi.
You don't think so?
I did have a friend. I did have a friend to me today. I just in the spirit of how I normally operate. I did have a friend to me that texted me and told me he voted Republican. He voted Democrat yesterday for the first time in his life. A Georgia resident. He's just a Christian and has always just been a abortion voter. And yesterday he couldn't do it, and so he voted Democrat. And so I do think there's, I do have hope for some. I do have hope, Chris, for books and conversation, but I'm just not sure today's the day to try to pitch a book to solve this.
No, I don't think a book today would solve it. I do think that educated people, first of all, I do wish that educated people would assert themselves more, right? Like the absence and the silence of educated people today, like with what's going on right now, is in some ways, like, first of all, the GOP is just buckled. They've actually let the morons take over. Like they're literally very smart, hyper smart, super educated GOP people who know everything that you and I know, who know more than we know about how nonsensical it is where they're going with where their party is going right now, but they're silent, right? Some of them are silent, not, some of them, are out there, like, what's Kellyanne's husband's name, like
Sure.
the Lincoln Project people, Yeah, they're out there. They're saying things, and George Will has been trying to say things for a while, and Mitt Romney every now and then attempts to say something coherent. But I mean, in total, like the educated people of the GOP are allowing morons to storm the gates.
Well, I think it's just so crazy. I've said that so many times today. It's just so crazy. And I all I can figure is that, because it was just an hour or so before this. Did you read this? Like, it was all the news before the riot. Is that McConnell finally like stood up and made a mean speech to the Republicans and like stood up for democracy? Did you catch that news before the riot happened?
I thought that was so silly. I mean, he said like, I think Anand, I can never say his last name right, but Anand, the guy who wrote Winner Takes All, I follow him every now and then. He says something, and I think it's interesting. He's like, watching Mitch McConnell be 1% brave is like not really like, it's not all that people are talking about.
It's not worth. It's like here in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, that was on the phone call and has like it's basically been the good guy Republican that stood up for the election results. Like, I heard Stacey Abrams the other day, or I saw something. She was like, he's still not a great guy. He's just doing the right thing now.
Right, right. I've heard that about him and about, some of the Republicans who, like even the Lincoln people, people are still basically GOP people, but Trump has made them look reasonable by far.
All I can figure is that, because Mitch McConnell, he's not a dumb person, right? I mean, like, you don't get to where he got in life without being some kind of smart. And I think he's like smart. I think he's book smart. And all I can figure is that he just kept thinking, tomorrow Trump will pipe down, and then we can just like go back to business. And if something crazy would happen, and he think, yeah, but tomorrow he'll pipe down. And he thought that. Have you ever seen The Princess Bride? That old movie with
of course.
So
the classic.
This is I talk to my son about this all the time. There's when Wesley's telling the story of how he became the Dread Pirates Roberts, he says, the Dread Pirate Roberts came to me every night when I was his ensign or shipboy or whatever, and he said, "Good work today, Wesley. I'll most likely kill you in the morning. Good night." And for 3 years it went on that way, and then he made me the Dread Pirate Roberts, and that's how I picture McConnell going to bed every night, just like, terrible day. Most likely Trump will act normal tomorrow. It'll be better. And like, it just never happened. And it never happened. And it never happened. Trump's been telling us this day was going to come since June. Like, it was June that he started telling us what he was going to do if he lost the election. Yeah. I mean, in no uncertain terms. And he has literally handed everyone the playbook, and he has followed it to the T up until today. And all I can figure is that every Republican I'm not talking about the crazies, but I'm talking about like the McConnells and the et cetera. They thought, but clearly he won't. I mean,
here's what I think. I think Chris, Russia has a bunch of tapes on all of these guys because it wouldn't make sense any other way. I think in your lifetime, my lifetime, we're going to find out that these guys were all blackmailed because Ted Cruz, come on, you tell somebody that your dad killed Kennedy and your wife is ugly, and that guy comes out later and becomes one of your biggest supporters. It's weird. Lindsey Graham says, I think the guy's a kook. I think he's a kook and a bigot. And then, not long afterwards, he's like, I think the president's well within his rights, blah, 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 blah. I think everybody's in Dershowitz. I think everybody's on Epstein's island. That's what I think.
Here's the truth is, no matter what, you're right about somebody. I mean, we're you and I will be 60, 70, and it'll come out that X amount of people, they were with Epstein, they were with Trump in the hotel with the golden showers, blah, 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 blah. But I don't really think you need that much of a explanation to explain all this. You put a very, and say what you want, but a very charismatic man, and charismatic in a very terrible way, but a very charismatic man who has no allegiance to anything. I mean, the most utter narcissist you've ever seen in your life. I don't think he does not care about his family. I don't, except for what they give to him. And you just kept handing him power, and everybody else around him looked around and goes, well, this is how we keep power. Like, this is what power does, is it?
Here's a mistake, though, Jay. I think this is a mistake to make this about Trump as much as we do. Trump really, he broke the seal. He made the thing crazier than ever before. But indulge me in just this one thought. So Trump is different than everybody else. We haven't had anybody else who said, the sitting president of the United States wasn't born in the United States and hasn't been, come down the elevator and say Mexicans are terrible and all that stuff. That was that's next level. Okay, sure. But let's say this. Did you forget about people interrupting Obama by screaming, "You lie"?
Nope.
For the first
Twice.
time, yeah, for the first time ever, something like that had happened, the decorum. What about going all the way back to the entire time Rush Limbaugh has been having a nation of people, one of the
Yeah.
best listened to radio broadcasts daily, where he has out trumped Trump for just because we didn't listen to it doesn't mean that there wasn't an entire nation of people for 2 decades or so sitting in their cars every day listening to some of the most
Chris,
crazy corrosive racist
for
stuff.
for 2 years, I read transcripts of Rush Limbaugh's blog,
Jeez.
because I wanted to like try to it was like my effort to understand the other side, and so it was I couldn't listen to it. It would have like driven me mad, but I would like pull up the blog and like skim transcripts every day. I did that for
Every
like two
one of
years.
those guys who we're looking at in these pictures today actually started before Trump. Like
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
genesis, the dog whistles were going off. Like going think back to like Lee Atwater. You know the Lee
Really,
Atwater dude? You know this dude?
Reagan, right?
So Lee Atwater was he was the guy who they have him on tape basically saying we have to find different ways to say nigger.
Yeah,
And he's the guy who was behind the Willie Horton ad
yeah, yeah.
and around making welfare queens like an issue of the. So we can fool ourselves and think like this is something new within the Republican Party, but through the Tea Party movement, that was the precursor. That's been going on for years. That was the precursor to
Yeah.
QAnon.
No,
You know,
Trump was just he was the match on top of the fireworks fire pile, and he was just uncontrollable, and they didn't know it. I mean, they should have known it. I don't know why they didn't figure this out during the primary process, but like he lit that flame and then just like kept throwing shit on it for 4 years, and I think they thought they were going to keep it under wraps the same way they've done for generations. I mean, this is not a new thing. This white Christian nationalism. I saw the best tweet I saw today. Every once in a while you get a really funny tweet in the midst of all the terrible news. Somebody wrote, Mitch McConnell is currently in the Capitol building trying to put 100 years worth of toothpaste back into the tube or something like that. It was a great tweet. Like,
yeah,
and it's true. Like Mitch McConnell thinks
that's
he's going to
it.
get up there and give a 5-minute speech and like we're all going to go back to normal. And I don't know.
I think maybe this is what I hope. You've heard me say this before. I hope we end up with 4 parties or more. I hope like the Trump party becomes the split between rational Republicans and the Trump people. I hope they split into, and I hope the Bernie people leave the Democrats and start their own party because they definitely they're like 2 seconds from being every bit as nutty as the right to me in so many ways. They just haven't gotten there yet. They will get there. So maybe we end up with 4 parties, 2 kind of centrist, center right, center left parties, and then 2 fringe parties, and then
I had
everybody
a
else.
whole presentation for you a couple months ago, like back after the election, but like in November maybe, about how we were never going to get a third party because white nationalism wouldn't allow it to happen. I had all this like data and charts, and I'd like really like went deep into this because I really like we need a third party. I mean, like we need a middle party. We're split into extremes, crazy extremes that we then have to like kind of choose which way we're going to go, and it's led to this. This is where we are. This is the 2-party system like collapsing in on itself. And anyway, so my point was this feels like an actual moment for a third party though. It feels like tomorrow morning or the next day or tonight when they're doing the vote, like Mitt Romney might stand up there and like say something either intentionally or almost unintentionally. He might start that like centrist, non-insane conservative party. And he might pull enough Democrats over that Bernie and AOC just get the Democrat Party, right? I mean, like the liberal wing of the Democrat Party like holds, and Biden almost in retrospect is recognized as this middle kind of president, right? He was never actually either of the classical parties.
I will say this much. Republicans would be a hell of a lot more attractive to me, for instance, as a voter.
Yeah, a lot of people.
If they got rid of their racists, if they got rid of their white supremacy problem, which is a lot to ask. That's like saying, I really love that Burger King, but they got to stop using buns, right? Like, but if the Republican Party really did depose all of its white nationalists, its racist, its Anglophiles, because you don't have to actually be 100% racist to be an Anglophile, which is just so it's so just irritating. Like, I get it. You enjoy being white, whatever, but this is a party. So let's just, just whatever. Can you just shut up about that? Let's just talk about fiscal policy and education policy and policy. And you get to still be white. Be white as you want to be, but don't try and like color everything white as a precursor for me being in your party, because now we have a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm never gonna think that having 8 Candace Owens is gonna be enough for you to like convince me that you've somehow changed. Like, you've got the most self-hating Negro people in your party. That's not gonna be good enough. If it was the party of Colin Powell and Mitt Romney and I can name a few others or whatnot, it could be workable.
And there's a bunch of Democrats that are right over the other side of that split line that would glom onto that party real fast.
Yeah. I think actually we need to push some people over there too, Jay. Like Mnuchin, whatever his name is, the West
Which way do you want to push
dude.
him?
Into
Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he needs to go over there. He just needs to go over. Yeah,
he's actually a whatever this party is, whatever we want to call it, the Republicrats or whatever.
He's really a Republican right now. I don't know why he runs as a Democrat. Maybe it's because it's just traditional to West Virginia to do that, but he's actually a Republican. Yeah, he's not a Democrat.
What I've always found like super fascinating is that the two biggest two of the biggest single issue voting issues for people are guns and abortion, right? So Second Amendment and Roe versus Wade. And those are things that people will put aside all other considerations and single issue vote on those. And yet, those are also issues that for the most part, most Americans do kind of agree in a middle on. We mostly agree that, yeah, we should have guns, but yeah, we should have laws. And we mostly agree that we should have abortion, but it should be safe, legal, and rare. There's people on both sides that like split off because the fight makes them split off, right? But by and large, most Americans are in the middle. And if a party could rid itself of white nationalism, right, and could rid itself of socialism, and somehow find that middle where like, yeah, we're going to have safe, legal, and rare abortion, and we're going to have guns, but we're also going to pass gun laws. Like, I just think it could be a magnet for so many people in the Republican and the Democrat Party. But
I think everybody should be libertarian.
Big F.
The most American you could possibly be is to be a libertarian, right?
I don't know.
It's the most American party in my mind. The problem with the duopoly is that they both have different degrees of wanting to be in your business.
Yes.
Like, one thinks it's okay for you to have a joint. The other one doesn't think you should have an abortion. The other one doesn't think you should have like a same-sex partner. They all have ways in which they want to tell you how to be and how to live. And that's the reason why I hate the duopoly just in general. Like, it's like a necessary evil. We have to live with them, and you vote on the lesser evils a lot of times. I will say I come down oftentimes on the side of the Democrats who get on my nerves. They get on my nerves so much. But if it wasn't for the racism problem in the Republicans, right?
Oh, and it's a problem.
It's their brand. Like, if it wasn't their brand, like if Republicans didn't hold as their brand white nationalism in one form or shape or another, this would be a different discussion. Because I'm so annoyed by the left. I'm so annoyed by Democrats on so many issues. If you want to talk about a real single issue, mine's education.
Yeah.
And I think the education platform of the Democrats is actually hurting children every day.
Yeah, I read your piece you just pushed out, or maybe the recent piece about the new ed secretary. Or I guess he's not nominated. I mean, ed secretary nominate. How do you say it?
Yeah.
You wrote a piece about him, and you took our friend Ravitch a little bit to task there.
Well, I mean, I feel like she's the Trump of the left when it comes
Yeah.
to education. People don't pay attention in education that there are people whose sole job it is demagoguery. Like to be polemics is 100% of what she does.
Well, the problem is the thing about education, as you know, is that there's just so much government money, and government money is notoriously easy to get and easy to
Hmm.
spend and easy to hide how you're spending it. I mean, like, and it's so many entrenched interests that are based on continuing to spend that, get those contracts, get those funds, and spend that money. And even good people just find themselves like sucked into terrible systems, and they end up, yeah. Um, but you mentioned same-sex marriage, which I think is a fascinating example of something that in 20 years ago looked like an intractable issue between the left and the right, but it turned out that most Americans just didn't care. Like, I mean, it wasn't actually that big a deal. It was a place where, like, yeah, there's some people that like really, really are against it, but like most of America is fine, and we're in the middle on it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I guess that's kind of a hope for like, could we have another shift? Could there be another like policy shift in the next 15, 20 years, 5, 10 years that could just realign us in a similar way? I don't know. You disappeared again. You're always doing that. Nope, you're back. I hear you.
Yeah, my camera goes in and out sometimes. All right, so we weren't gonna talk about Trump tonight. We were gonna talk about other
I want
stuff,
to.
but
I don't
Trump
ever
did
want
this
to talk.
little relative, so
I don't never want to talk about Trump again, Chris. This is going to be the last time we ever.
it is never. That's not gonna happen. He's gonna do
No,
something else in the like. We're not. Listen, this time yesterday it would have been like, okay, what else could he possibly do? And then he
but you know
shows
what?
you.
You know what? I'll say two things, and then we'll call it quits. I really thought so. Remember, right after the election, and he kind of went into hiding, right? And he just like his Twitter went silent. He was just golfing, and I really thought he was just going to resign and disappear to like Scotland or somewhere, and yeah, he would show back up and like start a TV network or whatever. I really thought he was just going to like disappear, and I was wrong, obviously.
Hmm.
So I still hold out some hope that he will. But man, I cannot believe he showed up and spoke at that rally today. It's not calling a rally. It's not even, that's too much dignity. He spoke at that riot. I mean, that's insane. It's insane that he did that.
Insurrection.
Yeah.
This is different. This is like you cannot blame BLM or Antifa with the criticism that they are treasonous. Like they're actually doing something that's treasonous.
Yeah.
You can say that this particular episode is getting very damn close. It's like getting right in that sweet spot of insurrection. The South will rise again. The police are our enemy. The state capitals are our enemy. The Congress people are our enemy. Oh, well, wait a second. Now you just mentioned America. You're.
I mean, that's why that Confederate flag, like, I gotta find that photo. I don't want to. That Confederate flag inside the Capitol was just like, oh, this is really what these people think, right? This is
Yeah.
like, that's patriotism to
Do you
them.
think
It's
we
like,
can ever have common ground? Like, do you think that it's possible that some people have left the plantation completely? Like, you're gone. You're so far gone. That's not possible anymore.
definitely there. I mean, there's always been those people, right? I mean, there's the people that the fake moon landing people, right? I mean, like there's I just I do have hope that we can pull some people back, or at least like, I don't know. I didn't answer that question well, because I that's my like, that's what I sit around afraid of, is that we've gone from, I think I read this. I mean, I know I read it. I read it somewhere that like, they did some analysis, some meta analysis of newspaper headlines over the past like 150 years or something, and they found that conspiracy thinking has always been with us, in America since as long back as they could do the study, back to the 1860s or something, but that it's just taken this like incredible spike in the social media area, no doubt, obviously. But the point of me bringing this up in the study was that it's always been there, right? It's just that social media is kind of like uncorks the bottle or whatever, and giving it more room to breathe, more room to explode, whatever. And I don't know that we can put that. It's like the toothpaste. Like, can we get that back in the tube? Do these people that once you've like rioted in the Capitol because you really believe that the election's been stolen in a coordinated effort from 50 states at once, do you ever go back to just like watching TV and eating McDonald's? Like, I don't know if you can. Like,
I will say this. This is why I'm a choice advocate. This is what, number one, this is why I'm a libertarian. Number two, this is why I'm a choice advocate. And this is why I'm fiercely in favor of, if you're dogmatic about any one kind of brand of religion or politics or anything, you make me nervous. And I just want to be able to choose whether or not I have to interact with you. I don't want my kids to have to go to schools where they're taught by people that I think are nuts. And I don't want to be forced my kids into classrooms with kids sitting next to them who I think come from nutty households and parents or whatnot. And I don't think it's too much to ask in a country like the United States that we just have choices, that we just have options. Like, we don't have to all go to school together. We don't have to all live together. We don't have to, choice is important. Voluntary association, I think, makes everybody stronger.
But you tweeted today that little snarky tweet about segregated schools, and you had the Morehouse and the Spelman banners or whatever. What was that about?
Well, I mean, here's first of all, if you ask what it's about, it's really just about how phony the issue of educational segregation is for progressives. Progressives are so phony. They're just so full of shit. On the one hand, they're cheering the Stacey Abrams of the world and a whole bunch of other HBCU graduates. And at the same time, they're pushing an educational essentialist idea that we can't possibly have black schools that work. We can't possibly,
and that was our biggest takeaway from Nice White Parents, is that it was just premised on the fact that black children needed to be in rooms with white children to succeed, right? And that's not been true historically, and it's not like we ever really gave that opportunity anyway. So why now? I don't know.
Well, so, I mean, why now on it is so you can have something to talk about that makes you feel righteous. Yeah. But you don't have to do anything about, because it's not going to change tomorrow. You can keep talking about it's kind of like fully fund public schools. Well, I don't think you should be able to have charter schools until we fully fund public schools. Go to hell. When is that ever going to happen? That's never happened. It's never going to happen, and it can't be the precursor of something else happening. Right. I
would just tell you, the amount of money that is flowing into public schools. I mean, it may be I'm sure there are districts that are struggling for funds, but we should just reapportion some of Atlanta public schools' money, because we are sick with money that we don't even know how to spend. Money isn't the problem. Now, it may be allocated poorly. I'm not claiming it's allocated properly, but there's plenty of money, even and without raising taxes. I'm not even saying we could just raise taxes or change. There's plenty of money in education. It's sucked into systems that are bureaucracies seeking to bigger themselves, right?
And anytime you say anything about moving out of that system, the feedback is, one, why would you want to destroy the system, or what will that do to the system? It's almost so system centric that it's narcissistic about itself. It's I know you want to do that other thing, but what about me? How will that affect me? And you're kind of I don't give a damn about you. The reason we're leaving you is because there's a problem, right? We need choices. We need options. And anyways, so I guess where I'm landing a little bit on this, we talked a lot about the Republican Party, and I don't know what they're going to do with their civil war, but I will tell you this much. Because I am an education voter and advocate, and not just an advocate, I actually feel like education's like oxygen. So when you talk about education just being one of other things, that's that's kind of like saying food or water or air. Which of these things do you need? They're all, super important.
I mean, it's the central force behind which most families align themselves for a period of time between 13 and 26 years, depending on how many children they have over how many years. I mean, every family in America is centering their world around their children's schooling, whether that's homeschooling or charter schooling or private schooling they're making every decision every day, all year, for 20 years per kid about school. So to call it just
one issue where the Democrats are completely wrong about. I mean, this is the issue that they get so wrong because they are so high on union weed that they're immoral people. They become immoral people because honestly, you have to make a decision between your constituencies. People of color, people who need opportunity, people who are being marginalized from the American dream, that is your constituency too, you say. And then you have unions. And you say, okay, but unions have money and they have political power and they have the ability to organize to help us get things. So if you make me choose between these constituencies, haven't I done enough of other stuff for you people? Don't we give you like other stuff, like so much other stuff that you can kind of just give us a buy on the educational redlining thing? Like, you know,
And what
not if the Republicans come around and say, hey, you know what? They're kind of doing you dirty on that education thing.
and what's amazing is that I started teaching towards the end of the Bush years, middle of the Bush years, and I wouldn't say we've had a national education policy in the past 4 years. We've just had I wouldn't say we have any policies in the past 4 years, but my point is that No Child Left Behind from 2001, which really got rolling up right around the time I started teaching in 2004, 2005, and Race to the Top were fundamentally like the same as far as there was not a whole lot of difference between those two, and especially not the way it affected my job. Like, and that's interesting to me.
I think they're very different.
And not at least the way they played out to me, they didn't feel that different. So what?
Actually, let me change that. Just here's what I would say I think is different is that Race to the Top actually changed state laws. No Child Left Behind slightly incentivized a few things, but mostly they just called for annualized testing, making sure that teacher credentials were equally distributed amongst kids of color, and making sure that there was some sort of accountability measures for for schools that chronically failed over long periods of time. Race to the Top was like a competition of what state laws you could pass that included things like teacher evaluation and like a whole host of other, like a menu of things that No Child Left Behind never went that far.
Okay.
Yeah, they never went that far. I mean, this was a competition. It was like, how many of you guys we'll give you millions of dollars if you just pass a set of laws that George Bush would have never tried to make you pass.
Here's my question. So some of that stuff sounds good. So when you talk about the Democrats being on the wrong side of education, do you mean now, or how did you feel about Race to the Top at the time?
Well, actually, I appreciated Race to the Top because it actually made us do things in Minnesota that we wouldn't have been able to do before. It actually incentivized people who would have been fighting with each other to actually come together and pass some things that we would have never been able to pass. So that I appreciated. So good question.
Were you on the board at that time? Okay.
I was on the board at the time.
Okay, you definitely know.
Well, we had a hole in our budget, and Obama filled it with like people demean Race to the Top. They don't talk about the fact that he just showered us with money. Right.
And I'm not. I'm not demeaning it. I think No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top both had like positives to them. So that I wasn't trying to demean him. I was just saying
he wasn't a prototypical Democrat on that. He was probably the first and possibly the last super reform Democrat presidents, and could you imagine now any of that stuff playing? You've got his vice president from his 2 terms in office running for president against his agenda.
Yeah.
Running against the Obama legacy, not with it. So
the thing Race to the Top did for us that I loved that disappeared, now that I'm saying it, I do. So like that is a change once Trump got elected, was the Georgia had such a focus on teacher growth measure for a while, and they worked really hard to invent a system. I mean, or to adopt a system, and we used to get this like incredible data about like how we were growing our individual students in our classrooms, and our students with disabilities, and our students without disabilities, and our girls and our boys. I mean, we had all these breakdowns, not just on their test scores, because you and I both know that like test scores I want to know where they're relative to like to what though? Like you started from here and you got to here, and what did I do? Like as a teacher, it was such rich data, and it did all disappear when Trump got elected. Yeah. And I would love that data. I would love to see that data. People talk about, Ankrum said it on Eight Black Hymns like several times. I was like, I don't want to over test. I don't want 1,000 tests, but I do want one good test a year.
Oh,
you know? I mean, like
the only test that people want to get rid of is the one, anyways. Like the accountability one. I'm so.
I want that as a teacher, though. I as a father, I wanted to see those tests. I do want to see those tests, and as a teacher, I wanted to see those tests. I mean, it was a little scary, but like I still wanted to know. I'd rather know than not know. Like, but it was the growth stuff that really like that was what I really like kind of sat on pins and needles for. I enjoyed that.
All right.
I've forgotten about it.
Well, and this is where we land for the night. We, we are in strange and crazy times. Typically, what we would talk about are educated related things, like where we just ended. But the world is like upside down right now. And I do think educators and people who care about an educated citizenry have a lot to think about right now. Like we have a lot to think about in terms of how we assert ourselves. How do educated people turn the tide back against anti-intellectualism in the portion of the country that has gone full on half brain? Like, we're gonna have to like have some better solutions, I think, coming up. So to the people who did come and watch, this is a new thing for us. This is like an experiment. So it's me and Jay talking, Jay and me talking every 2 weeks across lines of difference and trying to find some common ground and some solutions. Tonight was a totally different show than what we would have done because we had planned to talk about other things, and then insurrection happened. So Jay, you looking forward to maybe taking all that stuff that we were going to talk about, put it in the next show?
Oh, I got it for next time. Yeah.
All right. So we'll have a full agenda 2 weeks from today, and we'll promote days ahead of time so that we can get more people a heads up and to know how the conversations are going. I appreciate you, Jay, man. I know that you're so busy doing all the work that you do.
Oh, this is the work though. like we gotta take this, take the world and digest it and then spit it back out to all the students and children we live with. So.
All right, man. I appreciate you and appreciate you folks who watch at home. Stick with us.